How to land a full stack software engineering role at a startup, Series B or Series C in 2024. Hi everyone, I'm Amy. I'm a front-end leaning engineer, and then unfortunately I got laid off last year. I took a sabbatical afterwards, and then I spent multiple months looking for a job. I'll say the market is definitely not easy right now because there's a lot more senior roles than like more junior roles. Even though I was a senior previously at my company, I realized there's a lot of senior engineers competing for senior roles and staff engineers who are competing for senior roles. So I ended up getting 2 offers as like mid-level engineers, software engineers at smaller size companies like startups, and they're Series B, Series C. I'll say they're more established than Series A or like the seed, I guess like startups. However, yeah, this is what I'm gonna talk about in this video is how I landed jobs at these companies, how I prep for it, how I got interviews, and and how to just like survive this period of time while you're job searching because it's definitely really hard. After taking a sabbatical, I was a little bit concerned that no one's going to consider me as candidates or I'm going to be less competitive compared to everyone else because there's so many layoffs going on. However, the good thing is I actually didn't find it that hard to land interviews. I was getting 1 interview per week at least when I just started interviewing because I wasn't like that prepared for the interviews. That's why I put like gaps between every single interview with different companies just so I have time to prepare or practice more. However, when I was ready, I can actually easily get 3 to 4 interviews per week with 3 to 4 different companies. And so landing interviews wasn't as hard, and I'm going to tell you how I did it. The most effective way was actually reaching out to recruiters who reached out to me back then on LinkedIn. I would just message them and ask them, hey, like, do you have any roles open? I'm ready for interviews right now. I can start working anytime. And then the second most effective way, I guess depends on how many friends you have in their industry or are currently working. You can reach out to them and ask for referrals. Those are also really effective. Definitely update your LinkedIn to open to work and also update your resume and all your experience on LinkedIn to be up to date so that recruiters can know that you're open to work and they'll reach out to you if the experience is relevant. I'll say mass apply to everything you see that is relevant to your experience. You can find them on Google, LinkedIn, Indeed, anything, as long as it's relevant. Even if you're not that interested, use it as practice. Upload your resume to AngelList if you're interested in startups. Also pay attention to VC sites. Sometimes they have a list of their company portfolios and their open roles. VCs do try really hard to help their portfolio companies to fill in their roles and seek the right talent. Last but not least, if there's a role that you really like, reach out or stalk people on LinkedIn just to see who's the hiring manager, if there's a recruiter working for that company, or if there's any employees who can refer you. I think the chances are a little bit lower than the other ways that I mentioned, but this is still a way to get interviews. Okay, let's move on to the super fun part about preparing for coding interviews. To be honest, I think most coding interviews are just like coding exams. They're not necessarily fully relevant to the real job. I'll say just because based on experience, I was a senior software engineer at the public company before, and then I actually don't spend majority of my time coding. So I think while interviewing, I think it's definitely a different type of skill that you have to prepare for if you're not coding every single day. Maybe if you were working at a startup, you might be coding a lot more. I'm not sure because I didn't have that experience back then. But that is how I felt about interviews, is that you really have to prepare it like an exam and just like study a lot of things and review a lot of things. So it's kind of normal from that perspective that you might not do well at the beginning. I think if you're applying for full stack engineering roles, it really depends on your experience on whether they will ask you more front-end leaning questions or back-end leaning questions. So if you have more front-end experience back then, they will tend to ask you more front-end questions. And the preparation for front-end interviews is really different from preparing for back-end interviews. So for front-end interview preparation, be ready to implement a React component and answer questions on JavaScript basics, Like you have to memorize like JavaScript methods such as map, filter, reduce, and understand when and how to use them. Sometimes it also helps just to know how they're implemented or try to implement it yourself. Some more advanced topics like promise, async, callbacks, those things you have to understand. You have to know how to use them, because I also got asked those questions a lot. I'll say for probably half of the companies I interviewed at, know what debounds throttling is and know how to implement those. Those are really popular somehow. And then practice front-end design questions on how to implement the components and the data, like the how that connects to the data in the backend, like, or to the APIs. You have to understand how the data flows and how the component should be structured. And I really highly recommend using the GreatFrontend. That's the site that I actually paid to practice a lot of my front end questions, and make sure that you can finish each question within the suggested or recommended time period, because during an interview, there's not a lot of time. You wouldn't, even if they let you go online and search for things, you don't have that much time. They expect a lot out of you. You can never skip Leetcode. Just religiously do 100 or 200 of it, because and even if it's like a front end question, you might need to know some data structure and algorithm. You might need to sort data to display it. You might need to use arrays. You might need to use maps. So you have to know the basics of it. And also doing Leetcode allows you to refresh your memory on all these methods, like these JavaScript easy methods, or like the pre-implemented methods that allow you to do algorithm like sort and then understand queues. And yeah, there's like a lot of these pre-implemented libraries in JavaScript that if you know them, it will help speed you up a lot during the interviews and make you a lot faster at coding. Last but not least, you gotta do mock interviews. I use this site called Premp, which is free. I think right now they have limited credits, but if you finish an interview and then the other person thinks you're a good interviewer, then you can get more credits after every single round. And this definitely helps you a lot, because in interviews, you have to kind of know how to explain your thoughts and speak out loud, like speak your mind out loud. And also you have to think under pressure, you have to think in front of other people. So it really helps you calm your nerves down and feel more comfortable while you're interviewing. On top of mock interviews, if you can find a lot of interviews for practice, definitely use that. After every single failed interview, just try to learn from it. Try to practice more on the things that you're weak at. And then on the next interview, you can do better. So yeah, definitely practice a lot. Final session, we're gonna talk about how to maintain a good mental state, because job search and interviewing is extremely stressful. It's a big time commitment. It takes up a lot of your mental energy, and you want yourself to be performing at your best. So don't just think about interviews all the time. You gotta still live your life. You gotta still do things that will make you energized, like going out, hanging out with your friends, and then getting enough sleep, exercising, eating the right foods just to keep you in the best mental state. Because I saw people who are doing like 50 Leetcode questions per day, but they're not getting any interviews. The reason is that if you're tired and you're just focused on like practicing more, you're less likely to be able to learn properly, and that actually is less efficient. So definitely take good care of yourself so you're in the best state, and pick the hours of the day that you're most awake to do the interviews, and don't schedule too much, so you have more time to reflect on the interviews and learn from it and practice more, so you're way better the next time. Also, don't be too harsh on yourself. I know, because for me, I would get really feel really defeated when I fail an interview. However, you just have to believe in the process. You just have to believe that as long as you're improving, there would be one day that you're gonna get an offer. And that's what happened to me. I failed probably at least 10 interviews. Like, I probably went for close to 20 interviews, to be honest. And then it was until my last week that I did 4 interviews for 4 different companies within a week that I got. Actually, my success rate was 75%. So could you imagine if I kept interviewing after that week? That means that there's a certain point that you're definitely gonna get it as long as you're improving. Thank you so much for watching my video. This is my first or second video on this channel, and please let me know if there are certain areas you would like me to improve on, if you find some things helpful or some things that are not super helpful. And good luck on your job search. Take it easy. I know you can do it. Thank you very much.